In 1999, Khalid Khannouchi ruled the marathon when he set a world record in Chicago. That race became mythic in my mind, and it wasn't all because of Khannouchi, though I loved him. That year, I watched the Chicago Marathon from the sidelines. A man easily over 60 approached me with a weary smile and a pen and asked me to write his finish time on his forearm. He'd been running for more than 6 hours. I'm sure my eyes lit up with awe. I never imagined someone that old running that far. I was a kid compared to that guy, and he had me beat all around because I didn't run at all. In the instant I took the pen and wrote the time on his arm, however, a dream to run the first Chicago Marathon of the new millennium took hold. While the old runner had inspired my quest, it was another old man, my dad, who had introduced me to running. When I was a child living on the East Coast, he'd run 6 miles before work, and on the weekends he'd take me to the track. From the bleachers, I'd watch him burn up the turf. He urged me to get out there with him, but running just didn't interest me. In my senior year of high school, though, I joined the cross-country team, mostly because I wanted to add an activity to my applications to look good to colleges. This was back when Rosa Moda was setting the long-distance running world on fire. As I ran, I'd mentally chant, "Rosa Moda, Rosa Moda, Rosa Moda," as if saying her name over and over would make me run like her. But I was the worst member of the team. I never practiced, preferring to spend most of my time studying. The team only kept me because I was the extra body it needed so it wouldn't forfeit. Fast forward to the year 2000. My Millennium Marathon dream was real, but I knew I was a bad runner. I learned about a group called the Chicago Area Runners Association, nicknamed CARA, that could teach me how to run. So I signed up, and in the summer of 2000, I ran with the CARA group on the Chicago lakefront on Saturday mornings. One Saturday run, marathon training guru Hal Higdon joined us. That type of thing and the magnificent lakefront trail made Chicago magical. During the training, I was discovering that running calmed me. I had a lot of anger about past experiences and the world in general. But running cleared my mind, made me feel at peace. I could have an awful day, but then go out for a run and boom, things suddenly wouldn't feel so bad. Chicago Marathon Day 2000 came. On the same roads where Khannouchi had returned to defend his title, I was running far, far, far behind him, but in my mind, running like the wind. I'm sure our CARA coaches told us to pace ourselves, to not run fast at the start, but I was young, invincible. By mile 18, I got dizzy and could barely pick up my feet. The last 8 miles, I walked, jogged, skipped, cursed, hopped to the finish. I collapsed after crossing the line. The same line where hours earlier Khannouchi had broken the tape to become the winner yet again. Me, I picked up an injury that sidelined me for months afterward. I would always be a marathoner, but that was it for me. After my tortured run, Chicago Marathon 2000 was a one and done. I never stopped running, though. I was a sucker for the Chicago Lakefront Trail, whose beauty lured me, even in winter. I ran for the joy of it, for the freedom. I trained for 8Ks and half marathons. I ran the half marathons until I moved from Chicago to return to the East Coast. Years passed in my new home, and my responsibilities grew, and in that time I ran only one race, a half marathon, in 2011, though I never stopped running for pleasure and fitness. I wouldn't run a race again until 2022, after a former co-worker, this guy, Larry Rubama, standing next to me in the photo, encouraged me to get back out there. In running terms, I was old. I signed up for a half marathon as my last hurrah. It would be my last race. Well, I went out there and ran my fastest half marathon ever. And when it was over, I felt the stirrings to run a full marathon. That surprised me. The desire was real. I was ready to battle the 26.2-mile beast that had tried to kill me 22 years before. My rough 2000 experience had made me fear the marathon, but decades of running, maturing, and getting to know myself had not only made me mentally healthier, they had made me a better runner. I began to believe that I just might do well in the 2023 race. It was time for a do-over. I wanted to master the marathon. I still lived on the East Coast, but I signed up to raise money for my old group, CARA, that seeks to expand running opportunities across Chicago. The charity was one of the only ways I could participate since I didn't have a prior marathon qualifying time. I was fine with that. I wanted to give back to the group that had given me so much. But talk about getting a bad start. On New Year's Day 2023, I set out to run 7 miles for good luck, but only managed 1.7 because my hamstring blew out right near this road. The injury sidelined me for 2 months. I nursed myself with low-impact workouts and personal training sessions. They worked. I was ready to get back out and run. In the summer of 2023, I ran more than 700 miles on country and suburban roads. I even trained for a little over a week in Chicago, where I stayed with a friend. Part of the training included competing in a 1-miler put on by CARA. I really felt like I had come home. The beach right off the lakefront trail beckoned, and I enjoyed visiting her every day. In addition to my on-the-road training, I sought inspiration from YouTube running gurus, a phenomenon I couldn't have envisioned in 2000. YouTuber Kafuzi was my favorite, partly because he runs in Chicago frequently. I geeked out when he plastered my comment on his show. I declared that I wanted to run with him on his popular pre-marathon shakeout run when I came to the city. As the months rolled on, the charity donations rolled in. I was so grateful to all these supporters who were helping a cause I loved and helping me make it to the start line. In no time, it seemed, I was heading back to Chicago for the October race.
110. It's been our pleasure flying with you today. Hope you enjoyed the flight. Look forward to serving your travel needs again soon. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
I arrived at the expo on opening day. I strolled the hallway toward the large exhibition space and looked over the history of the Chicago Marathon plastered on the walls. Tears welled in my eyes when I saw Rosamoda's photo. She had meant so much to me as a youth. And to see the Chicago Area Runners Association up there made me proud. And there was my marathon, 2000, the 4th largest marathon in history up to that time. Right before the expo doors opened, organizers teased the crowd with luminaries. And one was Khalid Khannouchi. I had to get the photo. Then with my participant packet in hand, I walked through the expo doors and I knew it was going to be an incredible day. I wasn't wrong. Khannouchi, long retired, and other great runners spilled wisdom and praise from the stage.
Very excited to be here. Chicago means a lot to me, and this is by far, my humble opinion, this is the best marathon in the world.
And then I met Khannouchi and got his autograph. The expo was a runner's paradise. later, another dream came true. I was out there on the shakeout run with Kafuzi and the rest of his run club.
With bikes and other runners that are out there, we're gonna have really nice weather for shots of the sun and the water, so enjoy it while you're out there. And I can't wait to see you guys at the finish or at pizza, and so we'll get some deep dish pizza after that. Now, before we get running, let's do one more thing. I'll say yo, and then you guys will know what to say after that.
That's me on the far left in the yellow hat. At the pizza party after the run, I met YouTubers Thomas Neuberger of Believe in the Run and Chris Jones. Chris ran the Boston Marathon earlier in the year and said in running he'd found his people. As I soaked in the positive energy of that party, I knew I felt the same. Then I had time to stroll around downtown a bit and envision the challenge that would be before me the next morning. I felt prepared. I'd done something nice for myself a few weeks before. After 23 years of buying the same make and model of running shoe over and over due to a foot issue, and yes, these cruddy sneakers are the actual ones I wore in the 2000 marathon, I had stepped up my game and bought myself a modern shoe that I'd heard could help me run a little faster, the Saucony Tempest. Early on race morning in the hotel, in my Tracksmith kit and Sauconys, I was ready to go! My charity provided a nice warm space in the Palmer House Hilton until it was time to hit my corral. This was welcome on this cold morning that would be in the 40s at race start, perfect running weather. As the elites, including one named Kelvin Kiptum, were off and running, regular runners like me were held back. But when we were given the go to move, it was on. More than 1 million people cheered from the streets. In the midst of it all, I heard a man say, he did it in 2:35. I just knew he meant that Kelvin Kiptum had just set the world record in Chicago. That lit me up, bolstering my resolve to not give in to pain. We were all running in Kiptum's wake, and that knowledge lifted me just like a gale force wind, propelling me forward. Finally, we struggled up Mount Roosevelt. That small climb felt like Mount Everest. It tried to kill me, but a left turn was in view, and when we made that pivot, my anguish transformed into pure joy. The finish sign was welcoming us. Hands in the air, we were flying. Then we made it. We finished. I looked behind me and saw signs indicating no re-entry. I had just lived through a fever dream. I hadn't woken up yet, but I knew that I'd just experienced the top of the arc of my marathon story. I'd trained for months for what had been a few hours of living something no way ordinary. Life had given me a second chance to redo the marathon that had crushed me 23 years before. This time, I never hit the wall. I had pain, but nothing that I would allow to stop me, and I could walk the instant I stopped running. I felt nowhere near the verge of collapse. I was in the midst of an almost otherworldly journey, an experience shared with people from all over the world.
Push past all the pain and you find a door. Open it up and finally explore everything that you thought you could never do before. And even when you feel low.
The next day, Monday, I proudly donned my medal on Chicago streets, just like untold numbers of Sunday's marathoners. As we passed one another, we exchanged nods and congratulations. The feeling of comradeship was strong, beautiful. I stopped by a Fleet Feet store to get my medal engraved. Hours of waiting there allowed me to talk with many fellow marathoners, like E-Boogie Runs, who was nearing the end of her journey to complete marathons in all 50 U.S. states, and Kris Olarte from Dubai. The big surprise was meeting a certain marathoner named Linden. Like me, she is a masters runner. Unlike me, she set the women's American Masters record the previous day. Also unlike me, she won the Boston Marathon in 2018. She was at the store to sign her book. Scoring Linden's note in my copy of her memoir, congratulating me on my marathon performance, was simply surreal. I wasn't Linden, Kiptum, or Khannouchi, but in my own way, I felt I had mastered the marathon. I had PR'd in Chicago and time qualified to run it again the following year. The total experience, from the day I set foot in the expo to completing the marathon and living on a high for weeks afterward, was one of the happiest of my entire life. Wherever that back of the packer is who ignited this running flame back in 1999, thank you.
Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never ran, said no, man, I still go, go, go.